Good morning, everybody. It is bright. I say bright and early. It's 9 o'clock, so it's not really bright and early, but it does feel like it here in the UK, here in London. I know you said you're in a hotel right now, Chloe. Whereabouts are you? Are you also in London?
Yeah, London, yeah. Yeah, just heading to a shoot after this. So yeah, I've just come down from Manchester for yesterday and today.
Amazing. I know that you're all over the UK all the time,
uh,
which is always
yeah.
fun. It's fun with a train network like ours when you don't know whether you're here. Not
Yeah, yeah. Could take 5 hours, could take two, you
yeah,
know.
it's always fun.
Yeah.
But we are on week 3 of month of marketing today, guys, which is our penultimate session, which I absolutely cannot believe we are here at. Already. I feel like May has been the quickest month of the year so far, and I'm also pretty sure that I say that every month of the year so far. Today we are talking all things long form and specifically all things YouTube with the best person on the planet to talk. For those of you who don't know Chloe, I'm about to broaden your horizons and make your life so much greater because Chloe is amazing. We've been connected for a really long while, I think,
hmm
back when you were in your full-time role.
Yeah.
But had the joy of meeting properly and working together this year. You've recently launched your own business as well, haven't
Yeah.
you? So for those guys that don't know, who's Chloe? Where's she come from? Can you give us the rundown?
Yeah, of course. So, my background is in brand marketing. Started in traditional marketing roles, digital marketing roles, and then I wanted to get niche a few years ago. So I joined JD to look after their celebrity endorsements and creator partnerships. One of those creators was a YouTuber, and that role quickly stemmed into running the YouTube channel for JD Sports. So kind of built that not from the ground up. It was active, but it didn't really have a strategy in place, and so spotted an opportunity to kind of build YouTube for the JD Sports brand through YouTubers, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. And then spent time there for 4 years, built the channel up, and then I just spotted a gap in terms of YouTube knowledge in general, but also from I say strategic. I think there are stronger strategists out there than me, but I do think from a brand storytelling point of view and being able to read YouTube as a platform and implement that back into content, that's kind of what I do. And then around me, I have an agency called Archive House, and we are kind of a media venture agency for YouTube specifically. So yeah, I'm kind of the data analytics strategist, and then around me I have creatives, so videographers, editors, designers, who do the fun part to what I do. So yeah, we essentially run YouTube channels for celebrities and creators.
It's amazing. And I will drop Chloe's links everywhere. If you're watching on the replay, they'll be down below. If you're live with us, I will pop them in when Chloe's answering our next question. But what I really love about your journey so far, Chloe, is just how honest you are. Like, I know that you share your own journey on your own YouTube, you've got your LinkedIn, you're on Instagram. So it's nice to see. It's really nice to
Thanks.
see.
To keep it real.
Do you have a favorite memory so far, kind of building YouTube channels? Anything fun happened? Any like really big wins over the past few years?
Yeah, there are two. I'm smiling because when I went into the world of JD, I didn't really know YouTube at all. I am a bit of a plant. I think Sophie, you and I have spoke about this, but I'm not like scrolling all the time. Like I don't consume loads of content. And when I kind of like feel like I just got picked up and dropped into JD, and yeah, I didn't know who the Beta Squad were or the Sidemen, and so I had to learn all of that kind of stuff and immerse myself into that world. There's two moments at JD. We hit our first million view video, which I'll talk about views being, thank you. I'll talk about views being an unimportant start, in my opinion, but it's also still a really big win to get a channel from A to B and have that many people watch your video is great. And then I was really passionate about making the JD channel a global channel, and we did a collab with the Beta Squad and AMP, which for anyone in the creator world, for a brand, that's like near on impossible to do, and it was huge. And so yeah, a tear was shed in my hotel room that night when we got that live. We turned the video around in about 40 minutes. It was crazy. So yeah, and I do think that's from a personal point of view as well, actually, like just push yourself, and it's crazy sometimes how you get there, you know, even where we are now in the agency, like the things we're doing, I'm like, how the hell have we got here, you know? But I think yeah, it's amazing once you start to like build on that confidence.
Amazing. I love it. I love seeing you smile, reminiscing. That's when you know. We are, of course, talking about kind of like the long form comeback today. Now, I don't really think it went anywhere.
No,
I don't think long
no.
form has come back, but I did need a catchy title for today's session.
Yeah.
That's why. But I think where that thought comes from is I know you've worked in social for a long time now too. I've been doing what I do now for 6 years. And I think especially from like 2019, 2020 up until maybe last year, every single trend report I've seen has been like, short form is the future. Like it's this new thing that didn't exist before. We have TikTok, we have Reels. I know obviously you've got YouTube Shorts as well. There's that stat I always see thrown around that like people have 6-second attention spans. Like people aren't going to sit down to watch. But yet here we are, and like I know that you create content around this all the time, and we've spoken about it before. But like YouTube is bigger than ever, and it's only getting larger. Podcasts everywhere. And audiences are literally watching hours of long form content every single week.
Yeah.
So I guess to start us off, I would love to hear your thoughts on like why is long form quote unquote back, and what do you think that means for the brands or the creators or the marketers with us this morning who have spent the last few years going all in on short form?
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm with you on that, on the long form coming. I think it's always been. I think what we don't say is that it's changing. So like we've gone from short form not being a thing and TV, and then social media increasing, but there's still a huge audience watching TV. It's just that we're not watching it. You know, you always have to think like what we see is quite biased. And so yeah, short form is there, and YouTube's just been kind of pounding away in the background, and that's what kind of I like about it. It's quite a robust channel, and it is still there. I do think, you know, I think we're seeing a shift in whether you want to call it attention span or not. People want more, like, and this is why like Molly May vlogs do so well. The content is what it is, like, have your own opinion on it. Is it amazing? Is it not? But we relate to it, and it feels wholesome, and it feels like a hug. So you have to think we're in a loneliness pandemic, or we're in a space where people are struggling to connect. And for me, YouTube is a really great sweet spot. It's not quite as polished as TV, but it can be. It's not quite as raw as social, but it can be. And you can kind of create what you want on there and show what you want on there in a way that feels right and relatable to your audience. And so it's essentially a library that, for me, incorporates every channel and every platform, but it's not the most accessible, but it also is accessible to everyone if you apply right, apply yourself and your thinking right to it. And so yeah, and then I also to add to that, I do think creators are becoming more popular. And I don't mean influencer, I mean creator in themselves, and even celebrity are kind of crossing paths into creator and influencer into creator, and it's all kind of, I don't think it's one, I think each play a different role, but I do think people are wanting to feel closer to creators, and again YouTube is giving them a platform to do that. And again, I can talk about creators for a long time, so we'll get into that, I'm sure. And then what was the second point of your question?
That's a good question because I just deleted it from my list. It is.
It was how,
Yeah. So if long form is back, what do you think that means? Or what would your advice be for those watching who have spent years, going in on short form? Ah, crap,
yeah,
things need to be longer now. What do we
yeah.
do?
I think don't give in to the pressure of if you're seeing everyone online talking about long form. I think like take a step back and think, look, not everyone has to be on YouTube. And I think if you've got something to give on YouTube, then do it, whether it's value or education or storytelling or entertainment. There has to be a reason, and it has to apply to your wider strategy. Like for JD, it was a lot about connecting back. Like we had no emotional connection with our audience. We didn't actually know it at the time, we were quite naive, but YouTube gave us that back on a wide, like a mass scale. And I think it's around creating purpose, but also trial and error on social. Like social, you can now post, is it 10 minutes on TikTok or on Reels? It's one of them. So play around with longer formats and skits. Like I talk about Sisters and Seekers all the time, but they do this really well. Like they are testing, in my opinion, TikTok and this more like skit scripted stuff with a view of going on YouTube, I would say. I don't work with them, so I'm not, that's just an observation, but I do think you can play around and see if there's appetite for it before diving in. Because what does happen a lot, I even see it with clients, they come on board, we do 3 months and they're like, the results aren't there. It takes a lot longer on YouTube than it does on socials to see everything, and it's a lot more consistent. And so creating a space on TikTok to play around with longer formats also like eases you in as a creator, or a brand. It eases you in and allows you to go on a journey with it. So I would probably start there.
That's great advice. I actually filmed my first YouTube vlog in January 2024. I think it was. I remember I was invited to speak at ASOS, and it was like the biggest thing ever. I was so excited. And I've got the little Canon camera
Yes.
that everyone has. And I remember, oh my goodness, I was like shaking on the train, being like, "Hi everyone, it's me." But that has never seen the light of day. Not because it was bad, but because for me, I think, as you're saying, strategically, I didn't know where its place
Yeah.
was when it came
And
to a YouTube channel.
yeah, and sometimes you don't know where you're going until you start. Like, and everyone works in different ways. I have to do before I think, if that makes sense. Like I have to do it while I'm taking action.
Yeah.
And so you also can't get learnings unless you're posting on there. And so yeah, I do think there's a space for trial and error. It's just about consistency. I will always like say to anyone, you have to give yourself at least 12 months of consistency. Otherwise it's really hard to gauge whether what you're building is there's something in it, there's something deeper in it, and something credible.
Absolutely. What would you say that, selfishly asking this for myself, because I've always been interested in YouTube, but for those watching, whether creator or brand, what would you say that these guys are missing if they don't have YouTube as part of their kind of strategic rotation?
Again, I think it ladders back to your objectives and what you're trying to achieve, because if there's not a correlation between what you can achieve on YouTube and what you're trying to achieve as a brand wider, then that's a conversation to be had, and maybe YouTube's not the right platform. But I do think you create like a crazy loyalty. YouTube sits in this weird place of, I feel like there's just you and me, but it's also the biggest platform in the world. Like it's the biggest media platform in the world. Like that alone blows my mind. And so, when you're watching a vlog or you're watching Sphere and Chinsia or you're watching whoever, the JD channel or whatever, you feel like it's just you, and that it's quite an intimate moment. And so you build a depth with your audience, and then the consistency builds loyalty and trust. And so you just build this like friendship between you and your audience that I don't really think you can build on social. And that doesn't mean that one's better than the other, it's just they do a completely different job. So it's a lot about depth for me. It gives you can be a lot more raw and real. When I took over the JD channel, we kept the swearing in, and we kept the little offcuts and the boys like bantering one another, and that's not for every brand. JD it can play with like risque a little bit, so you just have to find where your candid moments are, because that makes a big difference, especially from a brand, that brands can be quite polished, not so much anymore, but it's just about playing around with what's your level of relatability in content.
I love that, and I really see on that friendships piece, actually it almost leans into me. We were talking in the speaker room, but I went to Copenhagen for like a little girls trip on the weekend. And I don't know if you saw, I promise this as a point, guys, but I don't know if you saw all the Kendall Jenner and Jacob Elordi in the car with Kylie and Timothy. We
Wow.
sat in bed. So, oh my goodness, Kath, this has just come up on my phone. You need to see it right now. And how, like, interestingly and awkwardly parasocial many of us, myself included, are with like the people we look up to, the celebrities that we follow. But I feel so much differently with my relationships, as you were saying, to those that I watch on YouTube. Sophia and Cinzia being a top favourite for me, and I know many others. I feel like I genuinely root for them.
Yeah.
And like you said, in a way that perhaps I wouldn't if I only saw their stills on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or I only saw their quick 20 seconds on.
It kind of humanizes whoever's behind the camera, because you see the little moments, and you see that, we're doing like a documentary fly on the wall series for a client, and she went to the dentist the other day, and we were like, you sure you want to put this out? And she's there, and people love it because it just makes them a little bit more normal. Do you know what I mean? Even from a brand perspective, like, it's a different edge or side of the brand that people haven't seen before, and they're like, oh, JD can make me laugh, or they can eat my favorite foods with me, or they can like listen to the same songs as what I do. We have the same interests, and that's where the connection comes in.
I love it. Now, back to your time at JD. I know that you mentioned there that you originally joined JD Sports to manage creator relationships and kind of spotted that YouTube opportunity pretty early on. Kind of putting JD Sport on the map with a Gen Z audience, again, through that channel, through what you did on there. Can you walk us through a little bit what that looked like? How did you do it? Especially that internal buy-in, and then in that as well, like, what was it like proving that it worked?
Yeah, so I really hate the word luck, but I do feel like everything aligned at JD, both from a business point of view, but from a personal point of view. I think we already had the budget in place, so I didn't have to. My challenge was keeping that budget, but re-diversing it into create like different areas. So upweighting creators, downweighting production, bringing resource in house rather than it all being external. There were always challenges in keeping that budget, but also YouTube there's no link, so there's no like affiliate, there's no people aren't buying what Chunks is wearing. Do you know what I mean? They don't come to us for that. But yeah, it really started with, we had the creators, and we had the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel was okay, but it was mimicking another brand that sits very closely to JD. And I said, we have these creators in agreements. We either do something with them, or we just let them both go, because there's not, there's no value in either, but we're investing in both. And so we kind of decided that we'd give it a go for a year, and we slowly like built. But what I was really lucky in that I didn't know anything about YouTube or the creators, so my only way to know was to talk to them. So we spent a lot of time together, we hung out, we formed a relationship. But that meant that they taught me about YouTube, but off the back of that, they were really invested in what we were doing, and they got it. From my side, I thought, I feel the closest to these guys and I understand them more than I do the content. Let them kind of do their thing. Like, just let them create. If they're YouTubers and they're creating viral content all the time, let them do that, but through us. And so they didn't write all the concepts. Sometimes they did, sometimes they came on and directed, and sometimes we did. And I kind of just twisted everything through a JD lens. So they would give their input, I would make it brand relatable, and then we would create, and that was kind of it. But that made our audience relate to us because they were watching these creators who they know and love in the way that they know and love them. And it just, it didn't have a JD logo slapped everywhere. It was just relevant to us and our audience and our product and our aesthetic and our brand equity. And therefore it kind of built this match made in heaven. And then in terms of growth and brand buy-in, you can't see any correlation. The stats were crazy in terms of, we were seeing like plus 400% year on year on different stuff and engagement, and people were with us for a long time. Like our engagement was crazy. We noticed it. We did about 18 months into the relaunch of the channel, we went to Sydney with the YouTubers, and we if anyone knows the JD brand, it's not the most loved brand, or wasn't. It's definitely changing. And people, people wouldn't turn up to store openings, or it wasn't like a kick game where people are they're dying for the trainers. It wasn't like that. We flew out to Sydney, and I remember we drove around on this bus, and then we just saw this mass hysteria of people, and we were a bit like, what the fuck? What? For us, for our brand, whatever. And it was all because we really lent into this YouTuber space as a brand, and also not many brands do it in that way. And then that had a knock-on effect, and we did a few store openings in Europe and then in London, and it was the same. And we were like, oh, this is the pull of YouTube. This is what it's doing. It's actually building this community where people actually leave their houses to come to us, which we've never had before. And you can do that through social, but we just saw this huge impact in real life brand love that we wouldn't have had before. So yeah, that was kind of the massive pull for us.
That's amazing. And I think that's the challenge for so many marketers. And I'm sure you likely had internal conversations then, and maybe even conversations with clients now. To your point earlier, it's hard to, I can't show you it's working until I try it, and then it does or doesn't work. But so many stakeholders, and I'm sure for so many of you guys watching, you have managers or teams who are well, prove it works, and then we can try it. But it just doesn't work.
And you can tell in the comments, you can tell when people are talking and when people are talking. Do you know what I mean? You can tell by how people are engaging with you. And we also saw a knock-on effect from when YouTube started to increase in viewership and engagement, so did social. The two were increasing in correlation, which was really interesting. It wasn't just one was going up and the other was staying stagnant. They were both lifting at the same time. So that's another way that you could kind of communicate that back.
Yeah, it has a knock-on effect.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a big part of your digital strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In your experience both at JD and the amazing clients and brands that you work with now, what would you say that most brands are getting badly wrong when they try and show up on YouTube?
Yeah, I don't know. How do I say this nicely? I think we're so used to being polished, and I see brands. I always give the example of M&S, but I see brands doing scripted, but not scripted for social, scripted for TV. I see them invest heavily in creators, but not allow them to show up as themselves. Just delivering through polished content. Or the other thing I've seen quite a lot of brands do is they just do trends. So they will do there's a brand at the minute, I won't say who it is, but there's a brand at the minute, and they're doing a beta squad lineup thing, challenge, and it just doesn't, it's just not their brand. You look at it and you're like, this makes no sense. So yeah, I think I think you don't have to do YouTube on a mass budget. Like, you can have a couple of cameras in a room in a studio and sit down and talk through something. Like, as long as it's adding back to my point, like value, entertainment, education, but it aligns with your brand. That's the main thing, and then you build from there. But yeah, I think brands are trying to do it as too polished. We see TV ads, we see TV shows, and we see trends, and I think if you take a step back, you can create something quite original. Even in, like, I have a podcast client, and we put trailers out and we do clips, and we do because everyone else is doing it. And I said to them yesterday, why don't we just stop? Why don't we just stop doing that? Why don't we just put the video out? Do you know what I mean? Like, just, I think sometimes you forget to think just because everyone else is doing the same thing. And so think about what's right for your audience, and trial and test different things.
I completely agree. I did a talk, an in-person like keynote sometime last year, and I felt like the biggest idiot in the whole world stood up on stage sharing this sentiment. But like the whole thought was around like good marketing or good social media marketing in 2026, or back in when it was 2025 I delivered it, is simply just doing something different. And I know that reduces it down to nothing. Obviously there's so much more that goes into that, but I'm a tiny team of one. Well, I've got 2 freelancers with me who are amazing, but every conversation we have is like, okay, well, that's really cool that they did that and that worked for them. Like, what 3% can we take and what 97% can we make for ourselves?
Yeah.
I think back to our earlier conversation, I think that so many of us and you guys who work in marketing just lack the freedom to do what we want, which is, it's not an individual problem, it's an industry problem, but a challenge nonetheless.
Yeah, I do think also with YouTube, we're in a space where there's not that many brands on YouTube, which for me creates a massive door wide open to test and learn, because you can't be doing it wrong, because there's what, 10 brands, like headline brands, that are doing it. And so that creates a space to play around with content. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying there.
On the kind of flip side to what brands are getting badly wrong, and I know you said there aren't too many brands on YouTube doing a great job at the moment, but what would you say a brand's channel that works looks like in 2026, or what could it look like in your opinion?
I think this is a really hard question to answer, because I think there's so many different ways to go in. I think I have such a thing in my head. There's TV. Do you remember? We've probably had this conversation, Sophie, but do you remember like Gok Wan was like all over TV, and Gordon Ramsay, and like TV shows that your mum would watch when you got home from school, but you would also watch them with her, like when you were a teenager. These like universal binge-worthy shows, they're non-existent. Like, reality came in and then we moved into this digital era, but no one is really filling that gap. And that's from a time perspective. Like this, we're all scrolling, right? So there's time for people to watch longer form content. But I do think, especially for beauty, fashion, skincare, female-led brands, I'm speaking from that perspective because I am a woman, and that's what I relate to the most. But I do think there's a massive gap for like that traditional TV styly to come back. Like, again, I'll use Sisters and Seekers as an example. I think they could do an incredible like long form skit series, because that's their brand. And again, that's it's not original for content, but it's original for brands to show up in that way. I think like Topshop and ASOS, Adidas have a real opportunity to do more serialized, like scripted content, but leaning into fashion. SheerLuxe do content really well, and they do YouTube. I did some consulting with them, and when I went in, I was like, oh, they follow no rules. Like, they put on what they want to put on, and they treat YouTube as a library, as a digital magazine, and it works. And so what they've done is they've just compounded over time, and they're now like really starting to fly on YouTube. So I think there are different ways, but I think if you take bits of nostalgia and historical traditional TV and pair it with digital thinking now? What does that look like for you and your role and your brand?
You said that was a hard question, but that was an amazing.
I get quite passionate about that actually when I get started. But yeah, look, branded YouTube is hard, especially if you've got no ingredients to start with. If you don't have access to creators or kit or longer form stuff, then yeah, it can be difficult.
I feel that. Bring back Naughty's TV.
I know. Wasn't it good? How to look
That's
good
so
naked?
good. I sometimes get like clips on my TikTok of and I don't know if I'm not watching it at the moment, but I saw a clip on my TikTok of, do you remember Super Nanny back in the
Yes.
day?
Yeah.
One of
Oh, she's been on Paul Brunson, hasn't she?
yeah, one of the kids from Super Nanny is on like a bit of a PR stint at the moment, and she's on Celebs Go Dating. I know she's done some
No, okay.
podcasts. God, I loved that show. Made me
Yeah.
like an angel. I was a nightmare child.
But even like Deal or No Deal, do you know what I mean? Like look, we're talking about highly produced shows here. You don't have to do them like that. But what I'm saying is like the thinking can be there if you get yourself in a rabbit hole down there. There's some really cool stuff that can be done.
Yeah, there's so much to be inspired by, isn't there? I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
For anyone in the audience who maybe wants to take YouTube seriously as a creator, I know a lot of the guys watching, especially if you're in our membership, we talk about building our personal brands all the time. I know some of our girls in our club as well they're on LinkedIn and now they've started a YouTube, which is so cool to see. For anyone who, again, not brand creator, maybe they're building a personal brand and they would love to Zoe Sugg, Molly May it up on YouTube. Where would you start? Where's the easiest place to begin?
Again, not to keep repeating myself, but I'd just test and learn and like pick up your camera. And I think get comfortable in front of your camera, and that takes time. I have a lot of founders come to me saying I want to document my journey, but they don't dare pick up their camera. And so start to film yourself at home, putting your makeup on, like getting ready, playing football, like whatever it is that you're doing. Just start to film yourself, whether you've used that content or not, like it doesn't really matter. And then I would put your content out, and what YouTube will tell you is when people are watching, the types of people who are clicking, what other channels your content is showing up on. And this takes a long time, by the way. This is not like a don't feel disheartened if nothing moves in 3 months. Like this, it takes time. And YouTube is also a bit sassy. It won't give you the information until you hit a certain threshold to kind of encourage you to be consistent. And so just put content out there, and then over time you'll start to feel what you feel comfortable with. And also when you're watching it back, editing back, you'll know the bits that you like the most and that feel most native to you, and just lean into those. And I guess that's like anything, isn't it? Like lean into what feels good and what's working, and do less of what's not. But I do think, look, it's likely everyone starts like documenting their journey or vlogging or being, a founder or building as a freelancer. And I think that's interesting. But I do think you, again, going back to, are you educating, adding value, or entertaining? And if it is one or two of those, like how are you doing that and how are you showing up? And again, like how can you make that content? Doesn't need to be super original, but how can you make it a little bit different and stand out? And then we haven't talked about packaging of content, which that's a whole other webinar, but it's, how are you creating thumbnails that people actually want to click on, and that they are relatable and stand out in the feed. And it's not YouTube's a click in, it's not a scroll through, and so you have to make people click on that thumbnail. But also, like, it depends what your objective is. Again, like, you can do it for fun. Like, I've documented this whole journey, and genuinely I do it because I find it fun. Like, it's a hobby, and it's not like I don't want this channel to be a huge thing. I just enjoy doing it, and like some of my friends watch it and the other female founders, and then it drives conversation, and we chat about the same problems or the same wins or whatever. And so I just think it's aligning it to your objective, but also you as a creator, and what value, entertainment or education are you going to give.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to get onto a metric.
Mm-hmm.
which I've always been afraid of YouTube because I feel like I'm just afraid of being perceived. I've got ideas, but I actually really love there as well how you touched on, like, it actually doesn't have to be a vlog. Like, I know that's what
Yeah.
everyone seems to watch, and I'm sure for many, I know when I think if I was to launch a YouTube, it would maybe be my most accessible format. It's on the go. I could even use my phone if I don't have big equipment. And I would say that my viewership on YouTube is really split 50-50 between those vloggy type videos. But I do find myself watching quite a lot of sit down talking, especially I
Yeah.
follow loads like marketing creators, like culture creators. I love almost like do people call them like video essays? Just someone sitting for 10 minutes and talking about something cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the scope for what you can do, as you've said, is maybe bigger than we give it credit for.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
also think people get in the mindset of they record a vlog and therefore they think every video has to be a vlog. And it's not the case. Like you can put different formats on there and test. You know, and it's a lot more robust than social. You can't just kind of throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. You do have to come up with some sort of considered approach. But I do think you can do sit down talking videos. You can bring a friend in. You can like do a vlog. You can go to you know, speaking gigs and whatever. And then again, you'll find that you have more resistance to some formats than others. And also some formats will perform better than others as well.
Now, on performance, I feel like for many of us, if we're used to short form or we're used to like traditional short form platforms over something like YouTube, it's very, you know, I post on Instagram and I see my metrics immediately. Like, you don't have to wait for people to see it because like you can post and someone sees your stories. I do this all the time, you know, and someone posts a story and it's like 3 seconds ago and you're like the first one.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me to everyone I love. But like it's quick and you see those results almost instantly, especially if
Mhm.
you've been building on there for a while.
Yeah.
You know, you said earlier that YouTube is a bit more of a long game. You know, if you're going to invest, if you want to try it, your best bet is to try 12 months, test and learn, see what happens. So not only does it take longer to see results, it obviously also takes longer to make, maybe potentially harder to get the sign off on as well.
Hmm.
Um, what should we be, or you know, when you work with your clients or even back at JD, what are those like success metrics? What should we be looking for? Let's say we start with testing and learning. What are the metrics that we should be using to inform our next steps?
Yeah, good question. So everyone is going to ask you for views and subscribers, everyone, because that they're the only two stats that you can see on YouTube. They do matter, but they come secondary, because if you don't have your primary stats in check, this is not going to come. So click-through rate is, you know, it's the same as social. Are people clicking in? It carries a bit more weight on YouTube because of that selection process rather than scroll. So look for a strong click-through rate, and look, you'll probably start at like 1-2%, and then your aim is to get to somewhere like 5-6-7 is good at a consistent level, and you want to keep that consistent. So what I always try and do with clients is we get them to a level and then we stay there. We don't, it shouldn't be coming up and down like that. It will at times, but it shouldn't be as much as social. It's not as volatile as social. Watch time. So it will give you, YouTube gives you a watch time in hours. The longer that you can keep people, the more views will come, because it's pushing into your algorithm. So this is why these secondary stats down here, views and subscribers, they come as a result from driving higher primary stats. So go for watch time, because if you can keep your audience, it's a retention platform, right? So if you can keep your audience for longer, you'll get pushed further into the algorithm. So you'll come up on suggested videos and you'll come up on people's feed a lot more. Average percent viewed and average view duration is the same level of importance and sits alongside watch time. So average view duration is how long people are watching for, not hours consumed. That's watch hours. So from a 17-minute video, you're probably, a good average is probably between 10 and 12. You probably start at somewhere like 2 to 3, because people don't trust you. People don't have that connection yet. As those watch time hours goes up, your view duration will go up. And then it also puts that into a percentage for you. So what percentage of your video are people watching? So they're kind of like top line stats that you would aim to hit, and then as a result of those, views and subscribers will start to come. But yeah, I'd focus on like how long people are watching for, and are people clicking in at first.
It feels so much more, I'm used to, again, I'm a short form gal. I say short form, my carousels are like 14 pages, but I guess in the country, they're on short form platforms.
Yeah.
Those metrics feel so much more meaningful than like, and I
Yeah.
know we've got like saves and sends as a more like qualifiable metric on traditional socials now, but I really love how much time are people spending
Yeah.
over just passive consumption and then scrolling on. It feels
Yeah. And it will, this is why consistency is important. So many people say to me, is it important that I go once a week? And it is, because you see a drop off. Like, we've got a channel at the minute and we posted great consistency, and then we dropped 2 weeks, and then your video then has to work a lot harder to get all of them people back. But we're all in routines, right? We're human, and we love consistency and we love routine. And so when you see a video drop on a Sunday night, you get like, oh yeah, that's my time, do you know what I mean, to sit and be with this person, or to sit and watch this program. And we like that. We're built in that way, and so that's why it's important, because otherwise your channel will go down to come back up.
Absolutely. And it's like you said earlier, almost describing YouTube channels as shows and serializing it. I know that every Friday Sophia and Chintzy are going to drop their video, and I know what's happening that evening. I'm sitting down and I'm watching.
Yeah. And this is why, anyone who watches Molly May, this is why she's always like, I'm so sorry, because people will be in her comments being like, Sunday night, we need you, like, we need you on our screens. And so it's important.
Yeah. We do have some fabulous questions in the Q&A box. So, guys, if you do have any questions, I don't think you can upvote on Riverside, can you? No, you cannot. So I will be the judge of what the good questions are. But yeah, if you do have any, pop them in. Just pop them in the chat. Riverside will, if you add a question mark, Riverside will pop it in the Q&A tab for me. Something we haven't touched on actually is YouTube Shorts. So we have a simple and a good question here, which is just, what are your thoughts on YouTube Shorts?
I'm a bit mixed on Shorts. Some people have them for they're on YouTube as a discovery tool, and so I think if that is what that's the purpose of them, and that's their intended purpose, then yes. A lot of the bigger channels and the bigger creators will always separate shorts from long form, and that's typically because you can train your audience to watch shorts, and it can sometimes be detrimental to the click through on your long form. Not always, it depends on the pull of your content and how engaged people are with it. But we have a mix. Like, this is not helpful, but sometimes my gut just says don't do shorts on this channel, like, let's just test. So for a new channel, I'd always do long form only if there's enough pull to the content. If you're testing and learning, I'd do both, because then you've got a higher chance of bringing people in. But yeah, I'd do it on, I feel like I've not answered that question very well, but I'd do it on if it's big and you're putting a lot of production behind it, then long form. But if you need that extra pull, I'd do both.
No, that's a great answer, and I agree. I guess it's about thinking about like the long-term effects of a short form strategy mixed with your long form. And I have no experience on YouTube, but as a social strategist, I'd almost treat them separately and then into that kind of point at the top.
Yeah, and I mean, at JD we always did both, and it worked in harmony. But we wouldn't hammer shorts. We'd give long form its time, and then we'd back it up with pushing shorts.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great answer. A really good question from Selena, actually, which I know we haven't touched on yet. So Selena has said, YouTube is consumed more and more on TVs. How do you think this will change our content approach and formats that we create as creators and brands?
Good question. Personally, I don't think it will change too much. If you can watch, sorry to keep referencing Molly May, but if you can watch Molly May Super Candid on your TV, and you can also watch a Netflix premiere show on your TV, I think that's quite a cool thing. And so I think it changes the behaviour in that I don't think people switch off when they're watching TV, but I do think it's more comforting to watch a TV than it is to watch something on your phone, and therefore the relationship between you and them changes. And so I think about that, like when you're creating content, always think about how people are going to consume it. Are they sat at home, phones off, watching it? Are they sat at home scrolling, watching it? Are they watching it on mobile? And then lean into that. How can you create moments within a longer form video where people will engage with it more in the way that they're watching, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have a really good question from Shanice, actually. So I know that you have a few podcast clients that you work with. So the question is specifically about podcasts on YouTube. So when it comes to podcasts, how can we use YouTube strategically to grow our audience visibility or engagement of said podcast?
Yeah, so I think podcast is such a saturated market. I think it's how do you create originality in what you're doing. Again, going back to those three, I don't know if they're pillars, but value, entertainment, or education. And then packaging for me is a huge thing on YouTube. So how are you positioning your titles, thumbnails, and your captions to really pull in audience again when the market's so saturated? So what do your thumbnails look like, and how are you making people click on them? And then also there's a lot of data and insights in the first few seconds of your video, and then how does that correlate to the thumbnail and the title, so that when people are clicking on, it kind of makes sense across all three, and they're not clicking on and it's something completely different in the first opening. And then I'd play around, like, how do you get creative with trailers to make people excited up front? Do you need a trailer? Like, what's your pull? And lean into that. And then how are you making it relevant to your audience so that you actually keep people for a longer period of time, especially on YouTube, because podcast is still an audio, it's still an audio first type of content.
I agree. I would say that when I consume podcasts, I'm really 50-50, whether it's like Spotify in my ears. The ones I find myself watching visually on YouTube are the ones that have like visual elements, or there are people that I want to see. Like Jake Shane on Therapist interviewed Kylie Jenner. You can tell my interests, boys and girls. He interviewed Kylie Jenner, and like, because I don't know them, I feel like I know them. I'm very parasocial. Like, I wanted to watch it. I felt like it enhanced my experience. So yeah, I almost see that in my own habits, what you're describing there as well.
It depends on the podcast, because I have some, and I look after one in particular, and we were very guest dependent. And then if you get a guest on that's not as well known, the whole thing flops. So you've got to try and create consistencies in how you approach the podcast in general, rather than episodically.
Brilliant advice. We have a good question from Joe, actually. You mentioned on this briefly earlier, but to dive a little bit deeper, Joe has asked, how would you approach clients that want content made, even the long form, but feel uncomfortable in front of camera? Most of our clients are already warmed up to the reality of them being in front of a camera, but some are still cautious yet wanting to be visible.
Really good question. I have this problem with a client in that they want to be on camera, but they need heavily producing. And look, some clients have, it depends what kind of content you want to make. Some clients have like really broad ideas, and they want to like try everything and do everything, and it's great, and that passion's great. You have to manage that relationship and that person to channel that into something that is more strategic and can run long span. And then also people do get shy, like give like I said earlier, ask people to film themselves at home, or film everything they're doing, or like chat in the car when they're driving. It's about I sometimes don't think it's about confidence. I think it's about repetition and like creating comfortability when there's a camera on you. I don't know your situation and your clients and how you work with them or what service you're offering, but it's a trial and error, and it takes a long time for if someone's not native in front of camera, that's a really difficult situation. Yeah, we have a couple of clients and it's hard. I either try and do it one-to-one, so I go to them and we do it together and we create a content time, so we'll have 2 hours and we'll like batch shoot social content or YouTube content, or handhold. Like, it's not the nicest thing, but handhold as much as possible and produce as much as possible. So how can you give them scripts, give them teleprompters, give them whatever, and then produce them so that it comes across more natural?
I remember the first ever video podcast I did. I think it was 2022. So I'd been running PLM for 2 years, and I'm 6 years in and I'm still a baby, but 2 years in I was this big baby, super tiny baby. And it was with a friend of mine called Amelia Sordell. She is a celebrity to me now, but back then when we'd just met, oh my goodness, I was starstruck. I was so excited. I remember like walking into this big studio and there were like 3 cameras, all of these lights, about 1 trillion people in there to produce this podcast. And I remember the guy in the corner was like, just pretend we're not here. And I was like, but you are. I cannot do that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think back, and even ones I've done now, I had the joy of filming with Chloe a little while back for one of your clients, and it was just me, wonderful host, and Chloe. So yeah, I think that like comfortability piece of how you can, and I felt so, obviously it's been a few years since, but I felt so much more comfortable. I felt like I could be myself so much more.
Yeah.
So,
I do think it's a really good point, and something we've not touched on actually, allowing people space to be themselves. Even with, when I worked with the Beta Squad at JD, so many brands brief people to be something different, like without even realizing that they're doing it. I don't think we realize that when we're briefing someone to do something in a certain way, we're giving them a rule book on how to be. Like, it's not, for me, that it's not okay. It's something we shouldn't be doing. And so yeah, even at JD with the Beta Squad, we were literally like, just be yourselves and I'll tell you if we need to swerve in a different direction. And then, interesting point on team, we always kept the team super lean. Like, I'm a really big fan of not being under resource, but the right amount. We go on shoots now, and sometimes we go on brand shoots and campaign shoots, and there's hundreds of people, and you're like, what's going on? Like, what are we all doing here, and so I do think it's relevant to create a space that feels safe.
Absolutely. Our final question is from Selena. I think this is a great question. Obviously you've talked about the different formats, so your different avenues with YouTube. You've got your 3 pillars. But Selena has asked, what is your take on finding the right balance in terms of like TV-like format, so a bit more polished, and the rather raw content style that people seem to prefer these days? How polished is too much? Where should you sit? Is there a spectrum? What do you think?
Yeah, really good question. I think again, it's not a linear answer, and it depends on your brand and your brand equity and what you're putting out there already in your persona, and how, if you're a, let me think about this. If you're a Salt and we're putting out like a really polished TV show, we're not making any sense here because we're so used to seeing you really raw. But I'll go for M&S, obvious example. Like, for anyone who hasn't watched their channel, just click onto their YouTube channel. It's just very, very polished. Like, they've got cue cards, they're reading from it, it's scripted. They've got Ian Wright on some shows, they've got Melissa's Wardrobe presenting. She's not, it's not that they're not bringing these people in and then allowing them to be themselves, and then the content is so extremely slick that it's actually not that watchable. And so it's about creating a space, and again, this is relevant to the type of brand that you do, and the type of brand that you have, and the creating boundaries within that. on how slick or how raw or real, and where you meet that in the middle. But I do think it's about creating space. I always used to say, like, let the content breathe, like let it just do its thing. It doesn't have to be slick chopped all the time. Like, if there's a moment that's funny, let it be funny. Also, your edit is so important. No one talks about edit really in YouTube, but your editor is so important. Like, that they have to understand the humor of your content, or the value or the education or whatever, but also of your audience, and how that comes together in the edit to make people laugh, or to make people feel, or to make people be seen, or learn. And so that's it. There's not a straight answer to this. I am going around the houses a bit, but it's about making it feel right for your brand equity that currently exists, but also letting it breathe so that it can perform, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great answer, and such a good note on the edit. Actually, my boyfriend is just a boy, and so he will be watching Sidemen Sunday every Sunday. Maybe not every Sunday. Some of the videos he's like, this isn't for me, but the majority. One, it's crazy how many, especially when they film outside and you see like 15 camera people following the production behind the scenes must be crazy. But such a good point on the edit. Like, I'm sure there are so many moments that would fall flat without like a side effect or zooming in or like a quick to something else. I can really see how that would add to an experience.
It makes such a difference. You also have to find editors who are passionate about the same things as what you are, as like as someone who manages channels. They have to sync well with the content and the creative and the brand, or whatever it is, that is the ingredient.
It's amazing. Well, Chloe, thank you so much for spending your morning. I know Chloe's got a shoot after this. She's back to Manchester tomorrow. She's a busy gal, so we are very lucky.
No, thank you for having me.
Your time this morning. For anyone, I've popped your LinkedIn in the chat for you guys watching, and if you're watching on YouTube, everything will be down here. But Chloe, for anyone that doesn't follow you anywhere and wants to keep up and learn from you, where can they find you?
I post on LinkedIn, not as much as I used to do, but on LinkedIn it's Chloe McCulloch. I'm sure Sophie will send the link because my last name is hard to spell. That's really where you'll find me. And then the agency is Archive House. We're just kind of undergoing a rebrand at the minute, so figuring out what to post and stuff on there. But that's me.
It's an exciting journey, and one that I am very excited to follow. Lots of big things coming your way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I will be back with you guys next Thursday at maybe 4 or 5 p.m, but check your invites in case I've got that wrong. We're going to be interviewing Mackenzie. Mackenzie works at Rare Beauty. She's the director of all of their social strategy, and she not only birthed and created their Substack, but she writes their Substack. Rare Beauty were one of may have been the first brand on the Substack platform, and I had a call with her actually to be like, hi, I'm Sophie, please will you be on my webinar? And she instantly said yes. She's really, really cool. But even just the insights I got out of her, like 10-minute conversation of how she does things, why they do it, blew my mind. So we've got a whole hour with her next week, so you're in for a treat. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning, guys. Thank you for watching the replay, and I will see you next Thursday for our last session. So I'll see you later, guys. Bye.
Thank you.